Hey there, welcome to this lecture. So today in this lecture, we'll be going to look into a little bit on the project structure. So as you can see right now, we wrote some of the codes. So we are writing some test cases also here, right? And we have just tried to push it to our GitHub repository and found out like this is really going well, and we can still like move forward with the deployment. But as of now, our project is not yet ready for deploying all of these things in our backend server, right? So that's why what we need to do, as we discussed in our previous lecture, we need to structure our project. We need to structure our modules in a proper way so we can deconstruct everything in upcoming lectures in the microservices. And as of now, you can see this application structure. You can see controller, we can see some repository, we can see some routes and all, right? And services also we can see. So those are pretty much like Node.js conventionally, right? So Fastify is following some kind of different type of pattern where we can hook it up all of the dependencies, or maybe we can register our plugins. But definitely we need to make all of this source code in modular way to make sure it can comply all of the configurations what Fastify is expecting. So let's try to handle all of these things together. So first of all, what we are going to do right now, we are working on the user routes, right? So inside this source directory, we're going to create one directory that is called modules, right? Let's try to create one directory. This is going to be like modules, right? So inside these modules, we will be going to consider our modules as a form of all of the services. Maybe we can, each and every module we are going to convert to microservice. That is what our aim it is, right? So let's try to create one directory. The first directory will be users, let's say, right? We can say the user, or maybe user, yeah. Let's keep it in singular, right? And maybe we can say UserService also. That's also perfectly fine, but let's try to keep it user. That's fine. So now we're going to create one file here inside this user, index.js, right? Then let's try to create a couple of more directories inside this user, the user directory. So as a from our first one, it's going to be our domain, right? Domain, right? Then second one will be definitely we need to put our handlers right there, right? So in this case, we can just like drag our route, right? Routes to inside user. Then repository also we can just move it to inside to this user module, right? Then yeah, service also we can move it to right there. Then let's try to create one more directory. This is going to be shared. So why shared? Because you can see our user module will be having some kind of dependencies, which is we can use maybe in the similar way with the other module also, right? So that in that case, the rest of other module, they should not supposed to directly incorporate with the user, right? So they are going to access the user, maybe, right? They can borrow some data from the user, right? The user module, but with the help of this shared module. So this shared module maybe, or whatever we are going to edit right here inside the shared, then we can convert everything to the message broker or synchronous or asynchronous communication. That is the idea behind this. So this is the way we can directly we can build a kind of better structure of the monolithic application, right? So let's go ahead and create a couple of more directories also, so we can have like a clear picture what we're going to do right here. In this diagram, we have all of the modules. We have our user module, we have our catalog and shopping. So these are the three main modules we are going to onboard in our application, right? So let's try to create the rest of other modules directory as well as. Let's go to the source code. So here inside this source code, we have our shared one. Then we are going to create one more. This is going to be catalog, right? This is going to be catalog. Then we are going to create one more. This is going to be our shopping module. So shopping module will be going to handle our order and the cart, and catalog will be going to handle our products and rest of other stuff, where we can update our stock and inventory and everything we are going to maintain right there. And shared module is going to handle all of the asynchronous communication between all of the modules. So right now here, if you go to the user module, and we can see we have our domain, that's perfectly fine. So inside this domain, we'll be going to create a couple of files, all right? So which will be going to tackle all of the complexity in terms of what user module will going to do, some of the data type or some of the fields or maybe some of the models that is we are going to interact throughout of the whole business logic. That is, we are going to tackle it right there, right? Then inside repository, you know better, right? So we have already our repository, user repository stuff. So this is what we are going to utilize there, right? Then routes. So while it comes to the Fastify, then definitely you can say routes also, or maybe some other way around, or maybe any kind of layer or directories. But in our case, we'll be going to signify this is going to be our handlers, right? We can say handlers, right? This is not only just a rename of the directories, it has to be something meaningful, which is while a request is going to come here, right, inside our backend service, then who is going to respond that particular request, right? Or who is going to handle that particular the functionality in the presentation layer. That's why we are just like keeping a good naming convention. It's called handlers, right? So now inside this handler, definitely we will be going to have all of the files. So inside this handler, we'll be going to have all of the files. So first of all, this is going to be definitely, we can just rename it to user handler, user_handler.js. Then one more thing we need to create it right here inside this the handler. Already we have our schemas, right? That particular schema we can just like utilize here. So this is not only going to be like user register schema, it can be anything, right? It can be user profile or something, but this is quite tied up with a particular purpose, user register schema, but we can just like rename it or also some in a different ways. Let's be that as it may for a while. Then first of all, let's go ahead and tackle like how we can expose this particular user module to our application, like this index.js file. Right now we can see this is our main file, which is pretty much dirty right now, right? So we have all of the query we are just like keeping here, like this, just to pass it on, and we have our repository, we have our service and controller. You can imagine if we have multiple like features, just like in our shopping, our catalog, our notification, our payment, then this whole main file will be quite heavy, right? So while it comes to testing this main file, this is quite near about impossible, right? By passing all of the dependency. That is the problem, which is we are going to solve it right here. So what we are going to do, we'll just try to make it lean, like we will be going to only call this particular start function, and we'll be going to register all of the modules inside this the start function. Then we will try to hook it up. Whatever the dependencies exactly matching with the or maybe required for this user module, it has to stay inside this user directory itself. That is what we are going to do. Perfect. So now let's go ahead here inside this user module and go to our index.js file. So here we'll be going to create one function, which is going to help us out to clean up all of this mess from here, right? So all of the dependencies from here, and just like keep it here inside this user module itself, right? So this is going to be a kind of arrow function. Let's try to create one. We can say const register user module, right? User module, and this function is going to be async, right? And it will going to accept one parameter, because while we are registering, we need to somehow pass our Fastify instance here. So we can say Fastify, right? And while we'll be going to return it, then make sure like we will be return something from here, right? So then definitely we will be going to create our repository instance and create the user service instance, right? Then we are going to return it. And finally, we need to export this one. Export a module exports, right? Then register user module. Perfect. So now our module is ready. So that means like we can directly hook it up this module from there, right? Now let's go to our start function here inside this index.js file. So right after this particular start, all right, so maybe here this is the right place to register modules, right? So simply what we'll be going to do, we'll be going to say await, right, register user module, right? So here we'll be going to simply pass our Fastify here. Perfect. So this is the line of the code. Exactly, it's going to reduce the numbers of line from here. Let's try to remove all of these things. And this is also it's need to remove, right? And this is also not required anymore, right? So we can just like get rid, and definitely this one also as well as, right? So only things gonna be needed the Fastify and the register user module, and this is definitely it's for registration of no, this is not required. I'm sorry. So this is also not required, because we are doing the most of the registration things from here. So let's say, again, we are going to do some other stuff as a form of, let's say, await, register, catalog. Right, catalog module. Then we can say Fastify. Right, the similar way. Right. Then all of the modules we are going to just like register right here. So that means you can see right now our server function is totally clean, right? So that means like while we just try to test it out for register module, simply just like pass this mock Fastify here, you can test it out everything, right? Now let's go ahead and close this particular file and go to our users, and we will be going to look it up like what are the modifications we need to do, because definitely we no need to write the codes whatever we wrote over and over. We are not going to do that, but certain files we will be going to move it accordingly. As a form of, we'll be going to move our domain right here. If you go to our user repository, you can see like everything stuff are mentioned right here. Like we can pass it on the data from as a form of deconstructed value from there, right? So we can directly pass this on. But somehow we need to use our data structure in terms of while we're going to create the data, while we're going to get the data, or while we'll be going to to compare some data. There's some ways we need to use, right? So that is what we're going to do inside this domain. Let's try to create one file. This is going to be like we can say user.entity entity.ts or js, sorry, right? Js. So here we're going to say export const create user, right? This create user. Perfect. So now let's go ahead one by one. We'll be going to deep dive from our the core level. All right. So first of all, we'll be going to visit our repository. Let's go to our repository here. So while we're thinking about the repository, then definitely we will be not going to have the much more changes here. So we have our user repository where we are just creating our user, and here everything looks fine, right? And get user by email, user by ID, all users, right? Get all users, then update user, then finally delete user. Perfect. So our user repository is clean. So we can just keep our user repository closed here. Now let's go to our service. So while our service is there, right, then definitely there are few things we need to tackle, right? So let's try to handle all of these things together one by one, right? So first of all, we need something which is going to handle all of the interactions as a form of while we are creating our user service. Then we need to accept a couple of more parameters maybe, which can help us to maybe the hasty password, right? Maybe sending the email, or maybe do some extra work for us, right? So outside of the box, we should not supposed to do it, right? This is the what beauty it is for dependency injection, or maybe writing clean codes, right? So what we are going to do, let's try to make this one as a form of object. We can say user repository. Then we'll be going to accept a couple of more things. This is going to be like, let's say, auth, right? Then we can say the mailer, right? Mailer can be anything, right? So because we are writing JavaScript code, then that's why actually there are no any type safety stuff. It's going to become here, right? But in the upcoming lessons, we'll be going to have all of the type safety, where we will be transfer this code, or we are going to write all of the codes in the TypeScript. So now let's go ahead and create one by one all of these things. First of all, you can see this user repository auth and mailer doesn't exist. So where these things will be come from, right? So as you can see, we have another directory that is called shared, right? So that's why this shared will become to the picture. So let's go to our shared directory, right? So let's try to add some code here. First of all, we'll be going to create one file, right? This is going to be like auth.js, right? Where we'll be put our authentication stuff right there. Then we can say auth.middleware.js, right? Then one more file will be needed. This is going to be like mailer, let's say, mailer.js, right? So mailer can be anything, like the type of a mailer, we can use it right there. But not right now. We are going to put any code. Like we'll be going to put some kind of interface kind of stuff, which is we can just call, just to make sure right after certain user operation, the mailer is getting called. So now here, while we are having the auth, then we need to install a couple of libraries. So first of all, let's check it out whether we have the libraries are present or not. So as you can see, we don't have those libraries are present here. So let's try to install one by one all of the libraries. So here we can say definitely we are using yarn. Then we can say yarn add and registerJS and JSON Web Token. These are the two libraries are extremely important for us. Perfect. So it's added, right? So you can see maybe if we can, yeah, registerJS is added, JSON Web Token also. Now let's go to auth.js. Here we are going to import bcrypt from registerJS. Then we are going to say import JWT from JSON Web Token. So now we can say export const, right? Auth, we can say something like this, right? And here we'll be going to provide our first function. This is going to be like a hash password, right? And hash password will be going to take one parameter. This is going to be our password, right? So you can say anything, like it can be maybe plain password, or we can say just like plain password, right? This is quite meaningful. So now inside here we'll be going to say await return await hash the password, because this hash password will come from our registerJS, right? And password, while we are going to hash this password, if you see like what are the things are accepting here? Hash, first of all, the plain password, then salt is a kind of string, or maybe we can just provide like what is the length of that particular salt, we can provide it here, right? So this is the way we can just like we can encrypt our password, right? We can just like make a hash from our plain text, right? Then we can just compare the password also. We can say compare password, then plain password and hash password will be going to provide, then return, then compare also, it's going to come from there, right? The similar way we can just like say generate token, or yeah, generate, instead of generate token, maybe you can say sign token. Let's try to make it like this way. So now here one comma will be needed, right? Compare password, yeah, generate token will be this particular JWT we are using, right? And then we can say verify token, right? So whatever the token we are going to provide it, it has to be verify the token. Then we can add a couple of more. This is going to be like sign refresh token, right? Then refresh token, whatever the options, we can just like pass it on, that we can provide it right there. But this secret we will be not going to provide from here, right? So somehow we will be going to read it from the environment variable, right? So let's try to not to take as a kind of parameter here, right? So maybe we can directly read it from the process.environment variable. And here also we are not going to use this one also going to be an environment variable, and this is also not required. Then this one, process.environment variable, right? So what this sign refresh token, right? So while we're generating the token, right, this generate token, it's going to happen, then it will going to interact with our database, right? So that means verify token will be no more required to interact with our database, right? While we'll be validating our verification, where we're going to do verification for our users. So refresh token, what exactly it is going to do? Verification, like generating the temporary token, it will be stay for just a couple of hours, right? Then the refresh token it's helping us out to provide you some kind of like the extra token, additional token, which is going to be extend your temporary token. This is what exactly we can use for the refresh token. So now let's go ahead and we can check it out. We can say verify refresh token also, right? We can say verify refresh. Perfect. So now we have our auth. So let's try to remove this particular thing from here. The bcrypt is not going to be needed because already we have imported this compare and hash, right? JWT is perfectly fine, right? All looks good. Now let's go to our auth middleware. So what auth middleware will be going to do for us? So auth middleware, it's going to take care of our header stuff. While our one request it is coming to our application, then it will just validate like whether it is valid header or not, or if it is going to be authenticated user to perform that particular operation or not, right? So let's try to do write that particular function also. We can say export const auth guard, right? And inside this auth guard, we can just like we can use this kind of stuff. We can say request and reply. right? Then thanks to the Visual Studio Code to provide me the code chain. Perfect. So now this is our auth guard, and here one more thing we need to import. This is going to be like auth from our here, not service auth. We can say auth from shared, right? Shared auth.js. Perfect. So now we have our auth, right? So where we can directly have the access of the verification token. So while we are going to call this auth guard, this particular function will be act as a form of middleware. So it will going to always call right before process the data to the services, right? Then it will simply just like capture our header, and it will look into if the header is present wherever it's needed. If it is not present, then it's going to throw some kind of error. Otherwise, it will going to capture that token, and it is passing to the verification token functions of the auth. That is, we have just created a few minutes ago. And there we will be going to verify the user, and we will just like send it back. And if the user exists right there, then it will assign to the request. So the further process or further operation we can just like handle accordingly to the authenticated user. If it doesn't exist, then it will throw some kind of error the similar way it does. Perfect. So now our auth middleware also ready, right? And auth also ready. Then now let's go to the mailer. So what mailer will do? So let's try to create one function. We can say const, right? Export const. We can say export const mailer, right? So mailer will be having some kind of mod function. We can say send email, send register email. Let's say registration email, right? To subject or body or whatever, we can just like provide it. We can say to email, right? Then we can say first name, right? Then body message, right? Or we can say directly message also, right? Perfect. So here, what we will do, we can say to do implement email sending logic, right? So we can just like leave a kind of console log also for a while. We are going to implement some form of the mailer. Maybe there are a lot of open source mailer also available, or maybe we can integrate a professional version of the mailer as a form of let's say SendGrid or similar stuff, right? So we can utilize this kind of stuff right here inside this mailer. So that means like while we are going to call this mailer.send registration email, whatever the plugin we are going to use, it is going to send the mail from right there, right? So our service is not caring about like what kind of plugin you are going to use right there. We are not very much not caring about it. We only care about it while we are going to send the registration email. It should supposed to send the email. That's all, right? So now let's go ahead here. So our shared is ready, right? So we can utilize our shared stuff right there. So now let's go to our user again. Go to our user service. Now you can see we have our auth and we have our mailer. So that means while we are operating all of the functions inside the user service, then definitely we can just like utilize all of the functions. So now let's go to our here, maybe inside this module, go to index.js, right? So here, first of all, let's try to create our repository. We can say const user repository. User repository will be user repository, right? So user, right? So user repository doesn't exist. Let's try to import the user repository. Import user repository from our user repository.js. So not from here, we need to just get into our repository directories. Then we can find this user repository from there, right? Perfect. So now let's go ahead and import again. We can say user service from, right? Then service, we can say user service.js. Perfect. So now our user repository is created here, right? So we have our user repository. Then definitely, like, do we need something right here? Yes, we need the query. So that is what we need to create again right here. So let's try to create the query, maybe right before this one. Import from database, right? So let's go one step back. We can say db, then we can say index.js, right? So here maybe we can find it out our query. Yes, query is here. So we can just like pass this query right here while we're just like creating our repository. Perfect. So our user repository is ready. Then the similar way we can just like create our user service. So let's try to provide this user service. But you can see like user services, it's needed couple of things. First of all, the user repository, then it's need the auth and the mailer, right? So these are the auth and the mailer also we need to instantiate here. Let's try to instantiate. We can say auth. Auth will be, again, we need to import this one, import from shared, right? So definitely we are already importing this one here, but we don't have index.js, but perfectly fine. Let's go with this one, auth.js. Later on, I'm gonna show you like how we can resolve the paths also, right? So by using the path settings in the project. So that's why I'm not doing right now. Let's keep it that way. So here we can say auth, right? And similar is gonna be applied for the mailer, right? And we can say auth, and maybe we can directly use this auth here, right? You can say auth. Auth will be there, mailer will be there. Perfect. So now our user service is ready, right? So now let's go to our user service and resolve all of these things one by one. Then we'll be going to again revisit right here. So because right after this user service, somehow we need to hook up with this particular service. Inside this registration module, right, registerUserModule, we need to hook it up with our handlers, right? So which is going to perform all of the endpoints. So right now, these things it will be a little bit different then, right? So let's try to do it that way. Then what we're going to do, let's go to our user. Then first we'll be handle the create user stuff here.